I'm a photographer, and so you're going to have to bear with me as I do this quickly, because Facebook, you know, is real. Thank you. Okay. Unlike Mr. Danso, I am not a magician. But I got like an hour's worth of stuff to fit into 18 minutes, so it's going to be a trick. It really is. And I'll admit up front, I don't know what I'm doing. So thank you for that lesson. It's true. Compensating through creativity. The subject, the title, is revolutionary innovation, and that's big. That's big. That's bigger than I am. But compensating through creativity is something I know about. Extremely, severely dyslexic. I didn't even speak intelligibly until I was about 5 or so. Wrote my name backwards, 10 years past that, and some days still have trouble. Sensory integration issues. Like getting through the day is sometimes very hard, be it noise, be it smell, be it lights. It can be a struggle. And I probably have at least 1 foot firmly planted in the autism spectrum. So about compensating, I have a few things on a regular basis that I need to compensate for. But I tell you without a doubt in my mind, I thank God every day for these disabilities, for these obstacles, these problems, because it has taught me how to be creative, how to compensate for them. And I'm going to demonstrate for you right now before your very eyes, because the second hand on this counter very well might drive me crazy. So I can handle minutes. So forgive me if by any chance I'm off by a few seconds, because I'm squeezing an hour into this. So the baby's built for speed, and we're going to rip through this. There's a couple of things I always like to do when I am ready to solve a problem. We all have steps. We've heard many of them. Steps for living your life, how to get out of your comfort zone. The first thing I always like to do is I like to envision perfection. What does perfection look like? And even as a child, I would take time to think about what perfection looks like. What's perfect movement? Thinking you're there and you're there, Everything else is kind of encumbered. Planes, trains, anything. The next best thing, really, if you're going to have to make a compromise, walking. Walking is probably the next best thing to thinking you're there and you're there. Likewise, perfect communication. Thinking your thoughts and having someone just know them. The fullness, the abstractness of what those things are inside your mind. Having someone share them without any words. And the next best thing in my mind, a conversation, face to face. Just talking with someone. Having your voice kind of reverberate and theirs kind of wash over you. That, for me, is about the next best thing. A cup of coffee and a sweet might be even better, but. So, envisioning perfection. The iPad over there on the left, that's a piece of perfection. I mean, they did a good job. I mean, anyone who would think, what is, a really perfect design, they really hit it. But about 8-10 years ago, you couldn't even make that. I mean, Apple, I don't think, couldn't have made that. And I had a problem. And that's the second thing. Recognize what your problem is. I mean, it's kind of hard to solve a problem until you have defined it. And let me tell you, rarely is it just one problem. Usually there's a couple of problems that you have to solve. So I'm a wedding photographer and events, my wife and I wanted a machine that I could just keep in the back of my camera bag, that I could throw my flashcards into, have them download, that I can burn discs with, that I could show the client what it is I'm actually photographing, because a lot of times people think I'm crazy. So, if I have something to show them, they're like, oh, okay, you're not that crazy. And I wanted it to be a tablet. Now, 10 years ago, the general posture for mobile computing, it was kind of like this. Or if you were really good, if you were really talented, it was kind of like you did one of these. If you remember people standing around computing like this, it wasn't going to cut it for me. So we took an old iBook and ripped it apart, kind of flipped the screen on it, shoved some stuff inside of it, glued it back together, and we made what we call an iTablet. And it solved a couple of my problems. Now, there were PC tablets out there at the time, but I have an Apple workflow, and my desktops were all Apple. And Apple did not have a tablet. So I needed to solve this problem. And if any of you are software programmer types, I had this particularly flaky problem. And all my files for my photographs, I renamed date to time. And when I do that, I very much appreciate the fractional second thing. But it seemed like PCs would round one way and Apple would round down the other way. So I would get conflicts in my file names for some reason. So it had to be an Apple. And so I made this. And it served me very well for many years. And in fact, you could see it has a cover and it stands up on its own. And if you fold the cover over, it goes to sleep. So, not like I'm trying to, lay any claim. I mean, anyone with half a sense knew that this is what it should look like. And I'm just a hack, So I did my best, and it was good. So envision perfection and recognizing what your problem is. That's an example. Next, biscuits. I was a baker for years. And when Jeremy asked me, what are you going to talk about? I responded, I think I'm going to talk about biscuits. And he was like, biscuits? I was like, well, okay, I'll be more specific. Biscuit cutters. And he was like, biscuit cutters? And I was like, yeah, biscuit cutters are the worst design. And he's like, biscuit cutter? I'm like, yeah, you know what a biscuit cutter is? And he's like, and I'm like, yeah, that's god-awful. No matter how delicate a touch you have, and no matter how good your fluff pastry is, when you push down and you twist and you crimp all those edges, those biscuits, they don't rise. They just kind of stay clamped, You want like the sharpest biscuit cutter you can get, like a razor blade. So I made my own biscuit cutter. Now, it's straight. And here's the other thing that I've learned. Because we don't have any funding, we don't have any corporate sponsorship behind our lives. I got no logos on me. So, we have to self-fund everything. So we're cheap. And I learned you have to be responsible for your resources, be it time, be it money, be it raw material. You need to be responsible for those resources. And a biscuit cutter, those rounds, you get, when you're done, you get this perforated sheet of a stencil that's left over you can't do anything with. That biscuit dough is useless because it never reforms correctly. So a square biscuit is very efficient. There's no waste. It gives you very clean edges. They just poof. Now, I had a bakery manager, and he was an old Navy person. He didn't go to any TED Talks. He did not read any books on mentoring or go to team building work. No, he didn't do any of workshop. No, none of those things. And I was young, and he kept on driving this point of this like efficiency into me, this being smart about, your materials and all. And I was stupid. And so one day, after throwing his apron at me, followed by the recipe book, after driving the point of the chef's knife into the counter, it finally dawned on me, you need to be responsible for your material and your time. You just can't let it fly. You have to be conscious of these things. So I hold up the biscuit cutter as an illustration of that. Lastly, I'm barefoot. And yeah, I have like inoperable bunions. I'm allergic to most everything. On top of that, metals. They can't set my feet for anything. And I go around barefoot. I run barefoot. I'm barefoot, pretty much year round. Snow, sleet, I'm barefoot. My solution is a pretty simple one when it gets cold. I just wear socks that have the toes cut off. It works. And when it's wet out, I just hike them up and pull them up to my ankle. And when I go inside and it's warmer and my feet are dry, I just pull them down. It's a solution, But there's a funny thing that takes place. People feel the need to kind of point out that, I'm running and I don't have shoes. You don't have shoes on. It's like, I knew I was running so much faster. I must have forgotten them. I don't know what it was. It's like, thank you. And they tell me this, you're going to step on something. You're going to hurt your foot. You're going to catch a cold. And I'm like, thank you, Mom. Meanwhile, these people are like, they're smoking their cigarette. They're walking around with their can of Coke, and they're tripping over the curb as they're telling me this. And I'm going, thanks for the advice. So defending your creativity, you are going to have to defend your solution, no matter what it is. If it's just far enough out ahead, people are going to look at you and go, you're crazy. And they do. And not only are you crazy, somehow there must have been a news report that went out that said all child abductions take place by people who are barefoot. They got it. They got that. They saw it. I didn't see it. No one. It didn't pass through my doorstep on that, newspaper. I got no clue. So as I'm walking through parking lots or in stores, immediately people are grabbing their children and holding them so close as if I'm walking around with a gun. It's amazing. It made me painfully aware, though, after 9/11. And you saw people's reaction to those who, by design, by culture, by religion, tradition, would wear a length of fabric around their head. Immediately, people saw them as somehow a threat. They were different. And because they were different, you had to be frightened of them. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I am not usually prone to fits of violence or rage, but people are frightened of something that is just far enough out ahead of them. So you will have to defend and give justification and explain why you are doing or designing or why you are compensating in the way that you do. Oh, I'm running through this. Okay. I believe it is the inherent nature of all of us to compensate for our weaknesses, to compensate for our disabilities with creativity. I do believe in a merciful and loving God. I do. I believe in a creator God. I believe in a God who decided to create, I think, to compensate for God's loneliness. Human has been, I think, blessed with that same nature to compensate with creativity. The first task given to human. Name the animals. There was a problem to be solved. All these animals, they had no names. How could you ever organize them? God says, name the animals. Let's see what human does. We know how the story goes. Very shortly after, human finds that they are naked. And human solves the problem. They compensate for their nakedness with some level of creativity. They sew fig leaves and cover themselves. And God looks at this and God says, that's okay for a Friday night, but the world is hard out there, and those fig leaves, they ain't going to cut it. This is how you do it. Here are some animal skins. You cover yourself up in this. This will get you through the work week. Have no fear. And so this is the process, I believe. God showing us, modeling, how do we compensate? How do we solve these problems of our disabilities? These are my children, our children, my wife and I. Only partial responsibility. And they are such a pleasure. They are company, and they make us proud. And they are certainly the better image of who I am. They are far nicer. They are far more compassionate, and they are extremely creative. And they had much to compensate for, because we were their parents. There was much to compensate for. You'll see. So the older one, Nate, is a barista, and if he listens to you for 2 minutes, he can mix the most perfect cup of coffee just for you. He can hear what you like. He can communicate to you why you like it. It's a gift. And he does these beautiful little rosettes on top of the coffee that he practices, and he does them well. Our younger son, Paul, is a printmaker. He's graduating from Mass Art in a couple of weeks. Quick story. I don't like holidays too much. Christmas, I really don't like. I accept Christ as my Savior, but I don't like Christmas. And so to that end, we don't always get a Christmas tree. Sometimes we don't. And so Paul's first year home from school, he says, "Where's the tree?" And we didn't get around to it. And he goes, "No problem. I'm creative." He goes down to the basement. He gets a bunch of boxes. He sculpts them into a Christmas tree. He hangs some lights on them and some ornaments, and he makes a statement on commercialism, on recycling, being green. It's a full artist statement in that pile of boxes. So they make us proud. Now, we modeled this for them. They lived in a house where they saw this on a regular basis. And it brings me to my wife, who practices this in the most perfect way. She is a preschool teacher, and she every day teaches these children, 2-year-olds, how to solve their problems through creativity. She teaches them how to negotiate with each other. She teaches them how to take a cash register and turn it into a rocket ship, how to take a Tonka toy and turn it into, a horse, whatever. She gives them the ability to solve these problems creatively. And I think that is just so important. So I'm going to challenge all of you. If you happen to have a child that you are responsible for, if your path happens to cross with a child, ask them what perfection looks like. Ask them and listen to their answer. Teach them. Give them the courage not to be afraid of their disability, of their weakness. Have them take it out of the closet, have them pull it out from under the bed, stand it up in broad daylight, name it, look at it, and let it be a strength for how they solve their problems, or how they empathize with someone else's problem that maybe they might be able to help solve. Show them how to be responsible for their resources If they're doing a glitter project with glue, make sure they lay out the newspaper first and put their construction paper on top of it, and then they could shake for all heaven. And then you pick up the newspaper and you pour it back in. And lastly, let them know that you are proud of their solution, that you are proud of their creativity. When they go to school, and the kids will mock them for whatever it is, I tied the laundry basket onto the skateboard and I am pulling it behind me because I don't want to carry my books anymore. Whatever it is, let them know that you are proud of them, because it doesn't stop. Because when my wife said to me, "You're wearing that?" I said, I like the way it feels wrapped around me. I like the way it feels. I don't like being distracted by my pants legs. It distracts me. She goes, "Go for it." So that is what I offer to all of you. Thank you.